if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
All day, every day.
Good morning, my neighbors!
That's why these two guys here, these are the men I want as my friends. They're the new blood.
All right, everyone, it's that time of the week. It's time for the Detroit Sports Podcast.
All right.
Here in the studio with my cousin Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Not too much, man. I love this time of year. Let me tell you why. I feel like you can be a complete degenerate and it's totally acceptable. You can gamble on all kinds of football, whether you play fantasy football, whether you're betting on games, whether you sit there and you totally skip out on whatever responsibilities you have to be a complete loser, basically Thursday through Monday. You can do it all, and it's all totally acceptable because it's football season, and football season is great. This whole podcast is going to be jammed full of nothing but football talk, and I love it.
What a great weekend it was this past weekend, kicking off the college football season with Michigan and Michigan State. You had great play from both teams, and we're definitely going to cover Michigan and Michigan State. We're going to recap last week's games, and also we're going to look ahead to really what most people are going to consider the start of the season, where Michigan is going to play Notre Dame, and Michigan State in the main event is going to go out to Oregon and play in what may be a national championship playoff preview. These two teams, Michigan State and Oregon, can be playing together in the Rose Bowl in the semifinal, and it could happen. Hopefully you can tell how excited we are to be talking about college football. We're also going to play a round of the Doctors in Session. Jock has three or four questions lined up for the Doc to tackle, and I'm prepared to give some great sports insight. And we would be remiss if we forgot about our Detroit Lions. Calvin Johnson thinks that this is the closest team we got to win the Super Bowl.
Bam, bitches!
Lay it down, I believe. If you stay tuned, we're going to preview the Lions versus the Giants. We're going to talk about some season predictions, some thoughts regarding the upcoming game on the national stage, and we are bringing back our football challenge. Adam and I were horrific last year. So we know we made you guys money if you bet against us, but this year we're going to hopefully pick much better, and we've added the caveat that we're going to pick 3 games each versus the spread, and we have to pick the Lions game.
Last year, it was like the Titanic just going down and just kept on taking on water and wouldn't let any passengers off. It was just a total debacle. Our season was a complete and utter dumpster fire. It was so bad. But you are the one who bleeds green and white. So I want your take on what you saw with Michigan State's first game this season. And just basically, I just want some general thoughts on what your feelings are moving forward now. I mean, you do have a huge game coming up this weekend, and we're going to kind of tackle that a little bit later. But I just want your general thoughts on what you've seen and kind of how you feel after week 1 of the college football season.
First of all, big sigh of relief from Sparty Nation that Connor Cook did not rip up his knee or ankle on that play. I wasn't aware that Michigan State coaches require all quarterbacks to wear that knee brace. And that, combined with the fact that it was talked about that his toe did not hit the ground at the perfect angle, he just barely lifted his leg up just in time to avoid shredding his knee to pieces and ruining our season. And a lot of people were talking, well, was that a cheap hit? It was iffy. It was a questionable hit. But Connor Cook, like the warrior that he was, came back, and wow. Michigan State was built, and their reputation is for defense. But Connor Cook this season has shown that the offense can also be a strength. His throws to Lippett and the other receivers were on point. The offense got rolling, and I think that play kind of captured because Jacksonville State kind of came out with a little bit of fire, a little bit of swagger, and kind of gassed our defense just a little bit with their plays. that play happens, and all of a sudden it kind of like, okay, the season started. We clamped down on defense, and then we started rolling on offense. And some players that I kind of caught on to that I'm really excited about that can help us get to that next level, obviously wide receiver Lippett. He is very confident. You can tell that he can be a guy that can be a deep threat and can be a safety valve for Connor Cook. Also, Langford was kind of getting beat up here and there early in the game. Nick Hill came on with some strong runs. I was thoroughly impressed with Nick Hill. I thought that, you know what, if we can have a strong combination of 1-2 play in our running back core, that just adds more weapons for the Spartans. Now, there was a couple injuries. It looks like coming out of the game versus Jacksonville State, McGarrett, Kings, and Travis Jackson are going to be dinged up and not play versus Oregon. And, you know, the wide receiver Kings, I believe, is not that big of a loss because of the depth at wide receiver. But the loss of Travis Jackson is going to be huge because our offensive line is a little bit thin and is considered to be one of those positions that may need to be upgraded, and playing a freshman at that position when you lose a player can be a problem. And so, you know, we kind of got out of the game relatively unscathed. You know, those two guys, you know, their injuries, we'll see what their status is. It hasn't been talked about too much in terms of their status yet for Oregon, but the likely scenario of them playing, not too good. But the great thing is, from watching on Saturday, the defense is just picked up right where they left off. It's going to be tough for teams to run on Michigan State. It's going to be tough on teams to put up big numbers offensively just due to the fact that this defensive system is in place, and at Michigan State, we don't rebuild, we just reload.
Bam, bitches!
And
I like how you're beating your chest. A few weeks ago, I had to sit there and talk you off a ledge, and now you're pounding your chest and ripping your shirt off, looking like the Hulkster.
It's one of those things where I'm not comfortable saying that Michigan State can win the national title. Like, the level of expectation now for Michigan State is beyond my level of comprehension. It's unbelievable. The Spartans can be talked about if we win versus Oregon. One game can shoot the program to meteoric heights that they haven't been to yet. I mean, we won the Rose Bowl. I mean, that for a Sparty is like the end-all be-all. Now there's national talk. There's talk of us getting into the 4-team playoff, the first ever. There's talk that maybe Michigan State can be an elite team. And I'm just excited after the game one that they put the hammer down on Jacksonville State, and they won.
Since you bring up the playoff, what do you think this team, this Michigan State team, has to do to make a playoff bid to actually get into that Final Four and then make some noise and possibly win a national championship? I mean, this is a totally different shoe for not just you, but for Michigan fans to see you guys wear, because there are national title implications that if you guys can get a win this week in Oregon, you guys may cement your bid in week 2 to play for a national title and play with the big dogs. So what has to happen for this team to make that playoff bid?
Yeah, what has to happen is a couple things. Stay injury-free. If Langford or Connor Cook or Lippett goes down, then you're going to have a tough time getting to that next level. I think that if Michigan State won, if they can stay healthy on offense and defense, they have a chance to make a serious run. 2, they have to avoid, getting overconfident in terms of their status as a program. Remember, Michigan State in the Rose Bowl versus Stanford, Connor Cook threw that awful interception and we were down. And there was a chance that, maybe Stanford could have rolled us. But no, we turned it around, we showed some grit, and in the second half we buckled down and we beat Stanford in the Rose Bowl. That's the style of play that's going to have to be maintained throughout this season. And also, too, unfortunately, we need a little bit of luck from our Big Ten compadres there, and they have to play well throughout the season. Teams like Michigan, if they go out and get rolled by Notre Dame, that can be a problem because writers out there need to consider the Big Ten as being an elite conference. And right now, the Big Ten, there's so many critics out there that say, well, teams in the Big Ten, that's just not considered on the level of an SEC or a Pac-10. And so you've seen what happened. Or teams
like Wisconsin letting ginormous leads slip through their hands in the final fourth quarter of the game.
Exactly. The Big Ten's going to have to help out to maintain a good status among the writers who are watching. And I just think that, I think that Michigan State has to continue to play solid defense and also take that next step on offense and become really, really a balanced team. Because right now, the perception is that Michigan State is a force on defense, but not so much on offense. If we can take that next step and become a really, truly balanced football team, then look out. Then we have a chance to at least get into the top 4.
I have a question for you regarding the defense and the offense. Which one of the two do you see taking, I don't know, maybe a bigger step forward or being a little bit more impactful this season? Is it the offense? Does the offense kind of figure it out and start to put it together and becomes a powerhouse? Or do they just kind of continue slow and steady on their path? Or does that defense take another giant step forward and basically cement this team's image as a defense first? We're going to knock you in the face. We're going to knock you down. We're going to kick you. We're going to run over you. And we're going to take that football and take it to the end zone because that's what this defense does.
It's a really good question. In my opinion, you have a defensive end in Shalik Calhoun that can be considered a national player. And so the defense as a unit coached by Narduzzi has a chance to really, really improve upon last season. I mean, they were ranked in the top 5 in all defensive categories. And I just think that the continuity of that system is a little bit stronger than the offense. But now you have a player that is, I think, underrated in terms of all of college football. Around town, yes, he's talked about, but nationally, Connor Cook can take that next step and become an elite, maybe possible Heisman Trophy candidate if he has a great game. I mean, look what he did. Look what he did last 2 games last year versus Ohio State and Stanford. I mean, he regrouped nicely when he threw that awful pick. Look what he did versus Jacksonville State. I mean, he threw amazing deep balls on a rope to Lippett and the other receivers. And so if Connor Cook, which I was really surprised that when the season started, he wasn't named on the leadership committee or wasn't named captain. Because when he almost went down, the whole stadium was silent. Everyone was like, uh-oh, we could have a big, huge problem on our hands if Connor Cook is injured. But I think that the defense is going to be the staple of this team. I think that Shalik Calhoun is going to be one player that, if he brings the noise, if he brings the defensive pressure, can basically shut down an offense. So they're going to need to ride that defense, and if the offense can just stay on par, if you can pound the rock in late situations, you got a big play quarterback and a big play receiver. You got yourself a solid team, and so I just hope that we continue this level of play throughout the season.
Very interesting. I hope Michigan State is competitive, and I hope they do bring the noise. I just don't know this week against Oregon. It's going to be a tough case for them, but I think their outlook in the Big Ten looks very good. Are you
doubting my Spartans already?
No, we'll talk about it.
All right, cuz now Michigan on the other end, great game versus Appalachian State. They did some things that they needed to do, and I think the talk around the campus, the talk around the program is, you know what, we got to show our offensive line off a little bit. So they ran the ball a little bit more versus Appalachian State, which was kind of noticeable. But Devin Gardner played a great game, and listen, the level of competition for both Sparty and for the Wolverines, not that great. Appalachian State and Jacksonville State. They handled their business. But you were there in person. You went there with your boy and you took your wife, which I don't know why you did that, but
what the hell is that about?
You were at the game. You were live. So in between buying your wife drinks and talking to her, making sure she was happy, what did you take away from the game this past weekend?
I think this Michigan team has done a few things very well, but I think there's a ton of question marks still with them. I think they're going to struggle this year in the Big Ten. This team seems to lack team speed. If you watch the game, they would sit there and they would break off long runs only to be tracked down and pulled down from behind as they were approaching the end zone, which was probably the most frustrating case. I think the O-line and the D-line, they did run the ball very well, but I think those two are still very suspect. And you don't know what you're going to get. You have to remember this is an Appalachian State team who, yes, are very good in their D2 program and their D2 setting. But when they play against the big dogs, you see kind of what happens. And Michigan isn't even what I would consider a big dog anymore. They're somewhere mediocreville. And I just think they're going to have a really hard time this season because I don't think this offensive line and I don't think this defensive line are where they need to be. The offense, however, I think looks very good. The issue is I don't know if it's going to be around long enough for it to fully take root and for it to really blossom because I think Brady Hoke's on the hot seat. If he doesn't sit there and pull a rabbit out of the hat this year and they're not competitive in the Big Ten, I think he might be gone. I think Dave Brandon might be gone. I think it might be a whole new regime change if these guys don't play well. The one good thing I did take out of this is I think Devin Funchess looks like the second coming of Christ.
Somebody say hallelujah.
He might be the next Jimmy Graham. He's very big. He's physical. He's got the speed. He can sit there and he'll basically outball any guy that you put on him, whether it be a linebacker, a safety, or it'd be a cornerback. you just can't match up with him. He's a physical freak. I watched this kid play in high school, and I did some reporting on him when I was working at the Oakland Press, and he was a physical freak then. And he has basically just matured so much this offseason. If you look at him, he is a behemoth of a man. And he's fast, he's quick, he's strong, he's powerful. I think he is the one good thing that this Michigan program has going for it right now. I think out of that game, that is the one thing I took away from it. Yes, they have a few things kind of working in their favor, but I still think there are a lot of cons in the pros and cons list here, and I think they're going to struggle a little bit. But I think Devin Funchess is the bright and shining star. I think he's going to be somebody to watch closely, and if he gets to that next level where he plays in the National Football League, I think he might be Jimmy Graham-like.
Okay, let me ask you a status of the program question. How much does it bother you that, in general, the upper echelon goal for Michigan is to just compete and to do well in the Big Ten? Whereas the Sparties right now, we're on the level right now where we're talking like our top goal is to win the Big Ten, to win a couple playoff games, and to win the national title. As a Michigan slappy, you obviously love Michigan. How does it feel right now to be...
I'm a slappy, but okay.
Okay, how does it feel...
I'm a very realistic Michigan fan.
Okay, how does it feel to be right now a little bit behind the eight ball in terms of college football in the state of Michigan?
This, probably the last, 7 years or so, have probably been the most frustrating years as a Michigan fan. It drives you insane to sit there and to watch this almost like a revolving door at the coaching staff. You sit there and you watch these players that they basically have to turn over. I mean, when they won that Sugar Bowl a few years ago, it was like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice. But you knew it was kind of fool's gold. If you were smart, you didn't really buy into it, because you knew that those players weren't what Brady Hoke wanted. He basically won those with Rich Rod's players. And then as those players kind of moved out the door, the last couple of years have been just filled with mediocrity. So it's been incredibly frustrating, especially to see the Spartans have so much success right now and basically sit there and beat their chest and say, if you want this, you got to come through us. And Michigan, I feel like they just they're sitting there on one knee, kind of looking up with like tears running down their eyes and like a pouty lip, and they can't do anything. They're just not good enough yet.
Because I'm a little disappointed. I mean, obviously, Michigan has looked at the program, at the state of their offense, and they looked at kind of where things went awry, and they made a move. Everybody said, fire Al Borges, fire Al Borges. I mean, the jokes went on and on last year. They went out, they fired him, they axed him, they brought in a coach from the Nick Saban tree, offensive coordinator Nussmeier. And right away you see dividends. That offense didn't look quite similar to...
against Appalachian State. Come on
true.
Now, you put it all in context. You have to put it in context.
Yes, it was against Appalachian State, but remember, they lost to them.
They did, but let's see how they perform against a team like Notre Dame.
So you're still taking a wait-and-see approach.
Yes, very much so, because I don't know what we have yet. I watching that game last weekend, it just seemed like there were a lot of really good plays that happened, but they would get to the door and they just couldn't finish. And if you're going to sit there and you're going to break a play for 64 yards, you need to be in the end zone. You can't sit there and get hauled down from behind on the 15-yard line or on the 10-yard line or within the 5. You can't do it. You got to get in there. All the good teams do that. When they break those big plays, if you watched any of that Florida State game, there was the pass that from Jameis Winston, the guy basically caught the ball between 3 different defenders, rolled off him, and then he scurried to the end zone for, I don't know, I think it was like an 80-yard pickup. You have to be able to finish and seal the deal, and I don't think this team has closers on it besides Devin Funchess at this point, and that's my biggest cause for concern.
Okay, I just think you need to stop, appreciate it right now before the season gets underway. Michigan won the game, they're 1-0. They've played a good solid game. Devin Gardner wasn't the albatross that he's been known for, and now they got a big test. They're going to play Notre Dame, but they've had success versus Notre Dame, and it is disappointing though that Notre Dame chickened out and isn't renewing their rivalry with a team like Michigan. It stinks because that is a regional team. It's a team that played, Michigan's tough, and it's a game that I kind of look forward to every year, to see how it's kind of like one of those litmus test games that everyone kind of
definitely a measuring stick.
And it just stinks that Notre Dame backed out and they always refuse to join the Big Ten. But if you're Notre Dame and you can be independent and rake in those NBC dollars, why would you join up with the Big Ten? Because in the past, in the bowl system, Notre Dame could just basically, have a mediocre season, and being an independent, they had an easier time to get into the BCS. But maybe now that there's a playoff system, it may force Notre Dame to maybe consider joining a big conference, because there's maybe the talk is with the new rules and the systems that there's probably going to be a Super 5 conference, and that's about it. And so they might have to join up with one of those conferences to be relevant going forward.
I would love to see mega conferences. I think it'd be great. I think you'd sit there and you basically force the NCAA out, and I think it would make college football that much better.
And because, going back to what you asked earlier, how lucky can Michigan State be? Their biggest competitor, Ohio State, their number one quarterback, out for the year. So that was like, when I heard that news, I was just like, hallelujah.
The whole state of Michigan rejoiced when that came across.
That was like, wow.
Whether you bleed maize and blue or you bleed green and white, you were holding hands singing Kumbaya.
Part of me is a little disappointed in that we wanted to beat the best, and what made last season so joyous was we beat Braxton Miller and Ohio State when they had won so many, I think 23 or 24 straight games in a row, and we ended that streak. But now Ohio State still has a lot of talent. Ohio produces a lot of great football players, but now the road to the Big Ten championship is a little bit easier since Braxton Miller is out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you.
So what do you think for Michigan in terms of offense or defense do you think will improve the most throughout the season?
I think for this team to be successful, they've got to go out and they've got to beat the likes of Penn State and Northwestern, and then they have to win one of the games between either Michigan State or Ohio State. That being said, the only way you're going to win any of these games is if Devin Gardner doesn't turn the ball over. Like you said, he's not that albatross that he tends to be sometimes, especially when he gets happy feet and happy hands. And this defense is going to have to be something similar to what Michigan State's rolling out there. They're going to have to be able to pop you in the face. They're going to have to be able to make tackles. They're going to have to be able to turn that ball over. If you watched any of the Appalachian State game, they looked really good. They looked very solid. That secondary made some plays. Their special teams made some plays. There was nothing better than seeing that punt block and the return into the end zone. That was outstanding. So this team is going to have to be successful in basically all phases of the game in order to beat the likes of a Michigan State or an Ohio State, to actually regain some of that credibility that this team has basically longed for the last 7 to 8 years.
Because I just think that this season is, I don't know, I'm sitting here today feeling positive. I just feel like it's going to be a successful season for both Michigan and Michigan State. I just think that, you know what, if Michigan can win those 9 games, if they can just avoid, making those big mistakes, if they can avoid getting injuries to those key positions, I think Michigan, with their schedule that they've kind of set up to be very easy.
It's so simple.
And playing a lot of games in Ann Arbor, I think they can win at least 9 games this year. And with the Spartans, I just think that with the growth of the program, with the national spotlight on them, I think they're going to take that next step, and I think they're going to win every game up until the national title semifinal.
You know, it'd be great to see for Michigan fans if somehow Michigan could pull off an 11-1 season, possibly a 10-2 season. I guess I'd settle for. If they could pull something like that off and just be relevant in the Big Ten, it would be outstanding. That's all we really want. Just be relevant again. Be in the conversation, because lately they haven't even been in the conversation. I don't count that year that they sat there and they went to the Sugar Bowl because they got lucky. MSU sat there and basically a giant special teams faux pas basically cost them the Big Ten championship, which then opened the door for Michigan to sit there and go to the Sugar Bowl. So I don't necessarily count that because they didn't play anybody to actually win that. They got lucky and they just kind of backed into it. So I don't see how that actually counts. So just be relevant again. That's all I think Michigan fans want, is just to be relevant. Be in the conversation with the likes of now a Michigan State and the likes of Ohio State.
Stay tuned. After the break, we're going to play a round of The Doctor is in Session, and we're going to continue this college football talk, looking at the upcoming matchups for our Wolverines and our Spartans. All right, everyone. Thank you for downloading the Detroit Sports Podcast. We appreciate everyone that hits the download button. We appreciate everyone that subscribes via iTunes. And thank you for everyone that's been visiting our website at DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Check out the website. It's a website dedicated for all fans in Detroit. For everyone that loves and is passionate about Detroit sports, like Adam and I, it's a great website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. 24/7 deals on sports memorabilia, sports tickets, sports gear, check out the website, check out our blog, check out our blog page, and check out the DSP shop for great deals 24/7. Check out DetroitSportsPodcast.com, and you'll find great deals on all things Detroit sports. All right, cuz this weekend is going to be another great weekend for us fans who love and are passionate about football. Saturday, you got the main event. You got Michigan State versus Oregon. You got Michigan taking on Notre Dame. And then you got opening day for football. The majority of the games that are going to take place Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. And then on Monday, our Lions take the field in a national spotlight. Can it get any better?
I don't think so. You know what? Actually, it can. You know how it can get better? We're going to have a fully loaded football Dachshund session right now. How about that? Are you ready to be the man?
It's been a minute, but I'm always ready to be the man. So let's kick this bad boy off.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here. I'm the man. Woo!
Speaking of Michigan State and these awesome Spartans who have basically claimed dominance in the Big Ten, what has to happen for MSU to come away with a victory in Eugene, Oregon this week?
This is one of those juicy matchups that we all love. And like we talked about, this has the potential of being one of those classic games because you have super great offense, tons of speed versus the highly ranked, tough-nosed defense. What side of the football is going to have the advantage? Oregon's offense or Michigan State's defense? Now, if you look at it, Oregon has a lot of turnover from last year. They've lost several key players on both their offense and defensive sides of the football. So they're going to have a lot of young players in a key matchup for the first time. Now, Michigan State comes to the game coming off of an epic Rose Bowl win. They're riding high. The program is really at one of the all-time highest points. And so now Michigan State comes in ready again to prove, listen, we're a great team. We're a great program. And you got a lot of people out there who are stubborn, who think, oh, Oregon's just going to roll up there with their big speed and just roll up the score on Michigan State. That's not going to happen. The key to this game, like many football games, in the trenches. Can Shalik Calhoun get to the quarterback? Can he stop and disrupt the running game? If those things happen in the defensive line, the Michigan State defense has a lot of tape on teams in the past that have rolled Oregon. Stanford, LSU, Auburn, even a name you'll love, Rich Rod, when Rich Rod played Oregon and defeated them. So there's tape out there on how to do it. And how do you do it? You gotta play smash mouth football on both sides of the ball. So Michigan State is going to have to run the ball, pound the ball, use their physical force on the offensive line to get, first downs, to get significant plays on first down. They're going to have to limit third and long plays. On defense, they're going to have to get to the quarterback, Oregon's quarterback, pretty quickly and often. And what they got to do is this. Pat Narduzzi loves blitzes. He loves these exotic blitz packages. With Shalik Calhoun and with the linebacking core, you got to get up there quickly and, you know what? Push the offensive line back. And if Oregon is forced into third and longs, if Oregon can get 1 or 2 yards, a couple yards here on first and second down, and then they're forced to get third and long, their team is young. And so they may not be able to consistently earn first downs. And if we can run the ball, then guess what? All that speed sits on the bench. And then Michigan State can continue to pound the football.
All day, every day.
And then guess what? Connor Cook needs to throw the ball deep to open up the defense. And if he does that, then I really believe Michigan State has a strong chance of winning this game. So my prediction for the game is an overtime game. I think that this is going to be a 30-30 game, regulation, and it goes to overtime. Michigan State will score on the first drive and stop Oregon. They'll get a turnover, a fumble. Someone on that defense will make a key play, and Michigan State will win the game 33-30.
I think the big key is probably, like you said, getting to Marcus Mariota. You've got to rattle him, and you put him in basically down in distance. He's not that great. You do that to him, it forces him to then have to make a play. It's a little bit of pressure on him. And like you said, that team is quite young that's around him.
Only one returning starter in the secondary.
Exactly. So you put that pressure on Marcus Mariota, make him make a play. I think Michigan State wins that battle the majority of the time. I think that if Michigan State is going to win this game, just to add my 2 cents to it, I think it's going to be a close one, similar to what you said. I don't think it goes to overtime, and I don't think they score that many points, but I think it's something similar to a 24-21 type game. They just eke it out. If they lose, they're going to get it handed to them because that's just what Oregon does. They sit there and they'll run the score up on you. It'll be like 63-28, but I don't think that's going to happen. All right, moving on. What does Michigan have to do to win the final road game and the final game of the series between Notre Dame that will take place in South Bend?
Here are some keys that Michigan has to have in order to be successful at Notre Dame. You got to obviously, number one, get good quarterback play out of Devin Gardner. I think that if he can make key throws, if he can avoid those turnovers, if he can keep the chain moving, then you're going to see a smooth Michigan offense, and they're going to put up some numbers. That, a guy like Devin Gardner, is just the way he plays, he's just really difficult for a defense to prepare for. Athletically, he's a playmaker. I think that he and the new coordinator, Doug Nussmeier, have started the season on the right note. I think that he started out a ridiculous 13 out of 14. Or I don't think
That's correct.
Yeah, 13 out of 14 in the first game. And like football, really kind of an easy game. If Michigan on defense can stop Notre Dame on the run, then I think then that they can sit back in the secondary and make the game one-dimensional. And then I think that Michigan can take advantage and get more possessions. So, do I think Michigan can execute it? No. I think that Notre Dame is going to have something to prove following last year's loss, and I think that they're going to want to go out this year ending the series with a bang. So I'm predicting this game to be one of those games that you might not be happy with. I'm predicting Notre Dame 28, Michigan 21.
I think nobody really matches up with Devin Funchess. I think he'll be the key to this game. I think Devin Gardner, Devin Funchess, just the connection, I think that will help seal the victory for Michigan. And I think Michigan wins another close one. I think this one will probably be something like 28-24 Michigan.
I'm really surprised that you don't talk a little bit more about Michigan's running game. I mean, Derek Green and Davion Smith really did good. I thought
they look good. I question that offensive line. I don't think that offensive line is going to look as good as they looked against Appalachian State moving forward. They're going to start playing better competition. This Notre Dame game is going to be a huge test. If they come out and they look just as good as they look against Appalachian State, then hey, you know what? Next week when we come on, we've got something to talk about, and there might be something there, and maybe I've got just a totally ass-backwards view on everything. But I have a feeling that they're going to come out, and I think that Notre Dame is a little bit better competition than Appalachian State. Actually, who are we kidding? They're a lot better competition than Appalachian State. I think that offensive line and I think that defensive line is going to struggle a little bit this week, and we'll just kind of see where it goes from there.
Okay, and I'm really curious to see how Everett Golson, the Notre Dame quarterback, does in this game. I think he was suspended last year. And
he was suspended last year.
And he played an awful game 2 years ago and got pulled. So I think he's going to want to come out and play a much better game. And Brian Kelly, while he's done a decent job, I'm really surprised that Notre Dame hasn't taken that next step to become nationally elite. I really thought that Brian Kelly would do a great job a little bit quicker in terms of the program at Notre Dame. And it'll be interesting to see if they can take that next step. Because I really didn't think that when he took that job, I didn't think that it would take him this long to be relevant. And I didn't think that he'd rack up that many losses already.
Have you watched the way he interacts with his quarterbacks, though? He basically degrades those kids on the sidelines. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, I know if I was an elite high school talent, I don't think I want to go play for that guy just because of the way he treats his quarterbacks. It's almost hard to watch. It's kind of painful. Have you seen any of that or no?
No, I haven't seen those kind of interactions.
If you try maybe checking him out on YouTube, because it's ridiculous. Like, his face turns beet red, and he just gets in these kids' faces and basically is poking them in the chest. Next thing you know, he's yanking them off the field, putting somebody else in. They're blowing it. He's then grabbing you, putting you back on the field. It's a disaster when he gets fired up like that.
Yeah, something about that Notre Dame job that turns good coaches into crap.
Oh, man.
It's a lot of pressure. I can imagine it's a lot of pressure.
All right, well, what was your reaction to the news about Wes Welker being suspended for 4 games for supposedly popping Molly cut with amphetamines? He's come out recently and said that he didn't take the Molly, that it might have been slipped into his drink, and that is why it's showing up in the drug test. And he is also disputing the actual findings in the drug test, and he vows to sit there and dismantle the NFL's drug test to prove his innocence.
Yeah, I think the story is still gaining, we're still fact-finding in terms of what happened, but just early on, you really feel for the guy because he's dealing with so many concussion issues, and he is one of those players that really has you feel like he can do more, but his injuries, his concussion problems have really kind of hampered him the last couple of seasons. obviously with Wes Welker, you feel like that's a guy that's the epitome of what the NFL is about. Hard worker. He's a little bit undersized as a receiver, but then he came out, to be one of the premier slot receivers out there. And if he just caught that ball in the Super Bowl, then the Giants wouldn't have won that game. But you know what? I really feel like he's worked hard and developed himself into really an elite wide receiver. Was Tom Brady's go-to guy when he got there. It's just disappointing right now that he's come out and stated this, that he believes that the test is misguided. I mean, first of all, two things. If it's true, as a grown man, how do you let someone slip something into your drink? You're a grown man.
Yeah.
This is a grown man. And by all accounts, he was having the time of his life at the Kentucky Derby, was passing out hundreds, was wilding out in his suit, was looking all GQ-ish. And the NFL said, oh, let's test him. And it doesn't surprise me that these players take these medications because the NFL is a brutal game. And when you've dealt with concussion after concussion, injuries, and you're a guy that's not that big, it's a tough recovery. And so it's just unfortunate that he got caught and he's hurt his team. There's been a lot of athletes that have initially come out and said, oh, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. And then it's just found out to be true. And since the whole Lance Armstrong controversy, because he denied it and denied it and denied it, I think the fans and someone like myself just kind of looks at it and doesn't believe him anymore. I just really, right now, I really believe a lot of players that are passing the test are taking it and they're just smarter about not getting caught. And it's unfortunate that he got caught. He's hurting his team. And I hope that if he did get something slipped in his drink, then that just makes him look really stupid.
All right, moving on. I agree with a lot of what you said there, by the way. What are your thoughts on the NFL's new disciplinary action on domestic abuse being increased from 2 games for Ray Rice to now a 6-game suspension for your first offense and a lifetime ban for your second offense? And do you think this is just a gross overreaction to the backlash from the Ray Rice incident?
No, I don't think it's a gross overreaction. I think it's the right reaction because if you read Goodell's letter, he was very thorough about how he constructed this policy. He admitted, which he doesn't do too often, that the NFL made a mistake and dropped the ball. Now, right away, you would think it would take at least a month before someone would test out the new policy, but a player in San Francisco, his name escapes me right now, already's gotten charged with domestic violence. Not even less than a month after the new policy was changed.
Weeks. I think it dropped
literally, wow,
a week and a half ago.
No, but here's the thing. I can talk a little bit about the whole Ray Rice situation. People were like, wow, why did he only get 2 games and da-da-da-da-da. We have to remember, Ray Rice was an upstanding citizen, did not commit too many problems, was a very, very outspoken advocate for anti-bullying campaigns. And when the incident happened, his wife went to Roger Goodell, sat with him. I really believe, people say, oh, this is horrible. He didn't think things through. Everyone was like, even an idiot would know that 2 games wasn't enough. I just think that we got to remember, we try to tell people, let's have a forgiving society. Let's try to rehab people. And this is not like someone who's a habitual offender. But when you step back and look at the whole picture, okay, maybe 2 games was light. Okay, and because that sent off a tidal wave of talk all across social media, all across the country. Everyone and their mama was like, no. 2 games? No. And it upset the fan base. So when you do that, and when your constituents, when your customers tell you made a mistake, you got to change it. And so he drafted a thorough letter, and it stated, these are the parameters. And when you come out and state, this is what happens your first offense, your second offense, you're gone forever. It's perfect. It's a perfect deterrent for someone not to do it. And then someone broke it 3 weeks later. But I think that the policy that is set in place by the NFL shows everyone that, yes, they're serious about deterring these players from harming others and harming their significant others. And domestic violence is a serious issue. And they wanted to show the female fans that, hey, listen, we got your back. We're not trying to advocate. I don't think that the 2-game suspension by Roger Goodell giving him 2 games that he supports domestic violence. That's just ridiculous. I just think that he also took into account the conversations that he had with one of his players that never really had a history before. I think they did a good job. I think obviously the first punishment was a mistake, but in the end, that's what life's about. You do things, you make choices, things are evaluated, and when someone comes back to you and says, hey, you might have messed up, you consider it and you make changes. I was not as harsh about Roger Goodell's decision just because Ray Rice had never done anything bad before. And when you knock someone out on tape, that speaks for itself. His reputation is sullied. Everyone's looking at him different. And I just think that Roger Goodell didn't want to kick him when he was down. And especially since his wife pleaded and begged and probably cried in front of Roger Goodell, I just think that made it tough to really put the hammer down on him.
But the fact that he did it in such a public place, doesn't that make you question whether or not he does this on the regular at home, behind closed doors?
Listen, I don't profess to know what it's like to be a professional athlete, let alone one that plays the most violent sport out there, where you got to basically get up to a level where you're basically out of control. And then how do you turn that off? So I don't profess to know what that's like. But the number one thing when you're in the public spotlight is you got to control yourself. You got to be a good role model, no matter what. And you got to surround yourself with good people. If he was in that situation with his wife and something came out, he should have had a friend there or someone on his team to pull the situation away to avoid that situation. And second, you can't, when you're in the public spotlight, get to the point if you're drinking too much where you're out of control, because everybody's watching and everybody's the paparazzi with their phones nowadays.
All right, Doc, that's all I got for you. Good round of Docs in session there.
Time's up. Time for us to take a little break. Stay with us. After the break, we are going to get into our Detroit Lions. Stay with us.
I'm Megan McCormick out here in Fox Sports LA, and when I'm not sitting out in the sun, I'm listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast.
You got to check out their stuff. I mean, I'm really impressed by it. You guys have probably one of the better ones I've seen in the country.
Wow.
In a short period of time, you've done good work. Look at me kissing your hand.
I know.
All right, everyone. It's that time in the podcast where we get to talk about our favorite football team. The Detroit Lions are taking the field this Monday night versus the New York Giants in the first game, I think, of 2 games on Monday night to kick off the season. And the Lions are still in the media talking about that this team's closer than they ever have been to win the Super Bowl, that they're liking what's going on in all areas of the offense, defense, that everyone's in love with Jim Caldwell, and everyone's excited. What are the Lions going to produce this year? And then on Wednesday, on national radio, national host Mike Greenberg came out and said that he thinks the Lions are going 11-5. I was like, wow. People are talking cause that, you know what? The Lions have built an offense that can win games. And people are talking like, you know what? This is a team that has the weapons to win games. The league has made moves to kind of, with all these defensive penalties to make the game more fun and watchable in terms of the offense. So have the Lions adapted well? Oh, hell yeah. They put together a whole offensive team. But last year's championship team, the Seattle Seahawks, tried and true, as always, defense wins championships. Now, I'm old school. I believe in building a strong defense. But nowadays, in terms of the entertaining value, can the Lions win games with what they've done? Yes. Do I believe they can win a championship? I would mortgage my house. I would give every penny I have to state that they will not win the Super Bowl. And there's a strong chance they may not even make the playoffs. So,
You know what's entertaining? What's entertaining? Winning football games. That's entertaining. I don't care if you have an offense that's going to go out there and going to run up the score 56-0. I want a defense that's going to hold that team to 0 points. Defense wins championships, and that's all that we want in Detroit is a championship. I don't care about your Madden-style offense. I could give 2 shits about that. You know what I want to see? I want to see that Michigan State defense that punches you in the face. I want to see that in Honolulu Blue. I want those Lions out there rock'em, sock'em, roboting you into submission, picking up that football and running it in for a score. I want a team like the Seattle Seahawks where they sit there and they punch you in the lip and they say, what? What are you going to do about it?
Because
they sit there and make you check yourself.
You can tell what the league is doing. They're making it like the Madden video game. That's just what they're trying to do because they want to sell tickets. They want the fans to watch. They want more people. They want more fans. So that's what they're doing. They're making it so that teams are built like the Lions. And do I agree with that? No, because I'm a fan no matter what. I'm going to go watch the game. And so I'm old school. But that's really what the NFL's counting on. You know what? We got that guy. We got DocNJock. They're going to watch. We got to bring in new people. How do we do that? They don't want to see a 10-3 game. They don't want to see a 13-10 game. They want to see games in the 20s and 30s. And so now we have to kind of think a little bit that the league attitude is shifted. But tried and true, you have to have a competitive defense. Do the Lions have that? I think Eli Manning's going to have a great day on Monday. I think that with his new offense, I think things are going to click together for him. I think he's going to put together some numbers versus our secondary. And I think that it's going to potentially be a great game to watch. Now, a couple of things I'm looking for this year for the Lions. One, I've changed my attitude a little bit. I just want it to be entertaining. I want to be able to sit and watch a game that can be very entertaining from start to finish. I think we have that. Two, I want to see a team that in the second half, I'm going to give them the first half to do all the offsides and the penalties. I'll give them the first half. In the second half, in the money time, in crunch time, I want to see a team that hunkers down, that doesn't give up key plays, that gets off the field on third down, that can, when it's time to win the game in the fourth quarter, not give up that key interception or not fumble the ball. And I want to see a football team that shows grit, and I want to see a football team that has discipline and has heart and that can represent the city of Detroit. So that's my expectation. I think this team can do it. I think Coach Caldwell is the right fit for right now. Is he the championship coach? We got some time to debate that and look at that. But right now, where we're at, I think we have a good chance. I said it when we first started talking about schedule, maybe 7-9. I think I'm going to give them 2 wins where we don't expect it, and I think I'm going to flip the script and say they're going to be 9-7.
Look at you. You know what? I'm a little bit more simple. What I expect to see is a potent offense and a dominant defensive line. That is what I expect to see from this team. You kind of seen the building of it last year with that offensive line where they were plugging pieces in, and that offensive line did a really good job keeping Matt Stafford upright. That defensive line, this might be the last time we see this defensive line as constructed this season, because you've got pieces that seem like they want to go away in Ndamukong Suh. There's already talk about possibly not bringing Nick Fairley back. You don't know who's going to be that opposite end on the side of Ziggy Ansah. So I expect to see these two particular groups come together and be dominant this year. I want to see, and what I'm hoping to see, is Matt Stafford basically arise to the occasion and become this dominant quarterback and just be clutch when you need your quarterback to be clutch and not throw interceptions. I'm hoping Eric Ebron makes it onto the field and he can become a productive member of this team, because right now he's warming the bench. He's our third tight end. Your first overall draft pick, your number 10 selection overall in the 2014 NFL draft is your third tight end. He's not even going to make an impact at this moment in time when this game starts on Monday night. I'm hoping that the secondary is not a complete dumpster fire. Like, we need them to just be competitive. Is that too much? A little bit? No? Yes? Maybe? I mean, I just need them to be competitive. I just want to see them maybe make an interception here and there, not give up a long strike down the field, make some tackles, learn how to wrap up. I mean, basic football that you learn in either middle school or high school. And when we talked about it before, man, we both said 7-9, and I'm sticking to 7-9. I think they finished third in the NFC North.
Third? Oh.
Yeah, I think they finished behind Green Bay, who's going to probably win it, and Chicago, who will probably come in second. I think they're right there at third, 7-9.
Wow. What do you think about this Monday night? What do you see? Do you think that, national stage, kicking off Monday Night Football, do the Lions deliver? Do the Lions come to the table with their A game, or do we see the same old Lions?
I don't want to give away everything because I want to save a little bit of that for the pick'em, but I think the Lions will represent themselves well. I think that this team will look very good on Monday night. I think they're ready to go. I think Coach Caldwell has them geared up and has them pointed in the right direction. I just don't know if there's enough talent on that defense to basically win them enough games to make them a playoff contender. And that's my big question mark, because they didn't really add anything onto that defense that is now going to take the field on Monday night. And what's going to happen? I mean, Van Noy's down for basically 8 games. That came out today, I believe. He's down for 8 games. So
we told you that last week.
Right.
We all knew it. I mean,
so
our draft class.
Right. It was confirmed today. And it's one of those things where, what have you done to upgrade this defense? Yes, you've got a Madden-style offense, and it looks great. And if we were playing Madden and we could score 108 points in 3.5 quarters, that'd be awesome. But you know what? We've got a defense out there that hasn't really had anything done to it in a few years. I mean, you need to start adding to that linebacking core. You got to start adding to that secondary. That secondary is the biggest question mark we have on this team, and I do not feel confident with our corners. And I don't really feel confident with our safeties. I like our safeties a little bit more than I like our corners, but that's not saying a whole lot. So I think the Lions will represent themselves well, but I want to save more of my thoughts for the pick'em.
Okay, just futuristic thought. Real quick question. Next 10 years, do we see the Lions in the NFC title game?
10 years from now? Wow. So Bill Ford's dead. The wife's kind of running things, and the son's kind of running things. So 10 years from now, so he gets to put his thumbprint on it. By then, he said NFC title game?
NFC title game.
So that means they got to win at least one playoff game, possibly two. I like how you're sitting there scratching your eyes out over this. Like,
it's so sad to talk about, right?
It's painful.
It's like,
it's really painful.
It's almost a question you got to say, in 10 years, can we make the playoffs? Like 5 out of 10 years?
You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid, and I say in 10 years, yes. They're playing for the NFC Championship in 10 years.
Okay, that's good.
They need to build up this defense, though, man. We've been beating the drum for a good defense for quite some time now. And not just on this podcast, but like, for years when we have talked about the Lions, me and you both, we need a defense. And all we keep getting is offense.
The only good news this week is maybe Ndamukong Suh's ego was slightly deflated when J.J. Watt got his contract, and right away everyone in Detroit was like, oh, Suh ain't getting that. Suh ain't definitely getting that. Did you see that statistic where first in sacks, first in all defensive end categories, first in hurries, first in that? It was like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and you're like, wow, what a beast. J.J. Watt's the man.
J.J. Watt's something special. You know what? Right after he signed his contract, he was in the gym at 4 a.m. lifting weights. Like, that guy does not take a day off. You realize that guy can play hockey, too?
Whew.
Like, I was watching, what was it? I think it's NFL Network, NFL Top 100 or whatever it was. And they had, like, some B-roll of him basically skating around on the ice, taking slap shots. Like, he's a physical freak. Like, he is so athletic, that guy can basically do whatever he wants.
Hey, I don't want to match up against him. And Houston's got a talent there, and they locked him up. And we'll see I think a lot of people are waiting to see around the league what Gerald McCoy signs for, and that'll maybe set the bar for what Suh may get. But I just don't think that, he came out and he was featured in a piece for E60. That was a tough piece to judge because on one end, you could tell a little bit, he sounds a little bit disingenuous, but on the other end, you can tell that, this is a guy that knows he's being scrutinized and is just trying his best to, deal with what's going on, trying to change a little bit of his perception and trying to tell people, hey, listen, get to know me a little bit better. But I think
does everything he says sound super calculated?
It does. That's why I'm saying it was a tough piece to judge. And the analogy I can give with Ndamukong Suh is everyone's guarded because we all kind of have in the back of our mind that he might bolt. On one end, I wouldn't blame him because if you can get out to Denver, if you can get out to Seattle, if you can get out to New England, I would almost do it. But at the same time, he's a Detroit player and we want him to be all about Detroit. But right now, he's just not, you know what it is? He's just not homegrown. He's just not right now, he's not considered a Detroit guy. And that's just what he's trying to do. But it's just really tough because in the back of all of our minds, we all know any kind of significant deal, he's gone.
I just feel like ever since he's come into the league, he's basically tried to, I don't know if it's necessarily distance himself or maybe put up this buffer. And maybe it's just the way he interacts with the media around here. And that's maybe why we get these stories that we get about him that possibly the national media doesn't get. Because with the national media, he's super buddy-buddy and really chummy with those guys. And anytime you see him you'll see him during the playoffs, you'll see him on CBS. And he'll be like a guest anchor while he's sitting up there with Dan Marino and Bryant Gumbel, and they're all talking about the games. And he comes off as a very nice guy, very mild-mannered, well-spoken, and seems to say all the right things. But then when you sit there and you kind of take a step back and you watch the way he interacts with guys like Dave Burkett, or when he sits there and he does phone interviews with some of the radio stations in town, he kind of comes off as a Richard. I mean, there's no two ways to put it. He just kind of comes off as a jerk. And maybe that's why I think maybe Detroit fans are kind of hesitant and not really like, we love this guy, we want to bring him in and we're going to try to insulate him and protect him. I think Detroit fans are a little bit more standoffish because they're like, who are you? Which Ndamukong Suh are you? Are you the nice guy, or are you the guy who's kind of like a cactus and you don't want to touch it? Like, who is he? What are you going to get? And you don't know.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. He's in a contract year, so the thought is that he is likely to produce on the field, and he's going to be someone that we need to step up on defense and be that catalyst to help the Lions defense make sure that they get off the field and they play well game in and game out. All right, cuz it's that time of the show. All right, everyone, if you're making bets, if you're a betting person, your best bet is to take what we say and do the opposite.
Go against us
and
at all times.
You are likely to be rolling in the dough at the end of the season. Jock crushed me last year. He won his dinner. He is he picked very well at the end of the season, and he won the championship. So now this year, we switched it up a little bit. We are still picking 3 games versus the spread every week, but we've also added a caveat that we have to pick the Lions. And the Jock is definitely a glutton for punishment. He wants to be invested in the Lions games, whereas I want to kind of tune out when it's like halftime and we're down 21-0.
I love beating my head against a cement wall.
All right, so now we have to...
Oh, by the way, Lions games are worth 2 points. There's
Lions
like a
games.
double bonus there.
All right, so you asked me to come up with the bet for this year. So last year we did the whole food and dinner bet thing. So this year we should do some type of humiliation bet.
Ooh.
Okay, so being that we are both on social media, we both have Facebook and Twitter pages, we have a website.
We're going to take pictures of you with your pants down at the end of the year?
We don't want more fans. We got enough fans on our Twitter pages.
Oh, is that how that works?
We got to contain the fans, you know. So what I'm thinking is, I know you love Michigan, and I don't think I've ever seen you donning Michigan State gear.
I don't own anything that's green and white.
Okay, I don't personally own anything that's yellow and blue. So how about the winner gets to pick out either a shirt or a jersey of either Michigan or Michigan State, and the other person has to wear it and post pictures all over their social media, all over their pictures, and wear it to something that people, and wear the opposing team's jersey to a place where family or friends may go, or wear it to next year's draft party.
Ooh, and we take pictures at the draft party
And we take
too?
pictures at the draft party too.
Yeah, I'm down with that. That sounds really good. I like that.
That's a good bet.
Did you spend all day thinking about that?
No, because I've done it. I've made bets before with other people for the Michigan State game. We just take pictures if you've done it, but I've never participated in a season long challenge. Okay. So this one will have to be good because there's a small chance I'll be wearing Michigan gear all over the place, but that's okay. It'll make it fun, and it'll be something fun to see. The King of Sparty wearing Michigan gear on our platforms.
Yeah, this will be good. This will definitely be good.
All right, cuz, do you want to do the honors and start first with the 2014 edition of the NFL Pick'em Challenge?
Actually, you know what? This year, I'll let you go first. Because didn't I go first last year?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you go first this year.
Okay. Kicking things off, I'll go right into it. I want to be invested in the Thursday night game. I think that the spread is a little bit high. Where did you get these from? Is it Bovada?
Bovada, yeah.
Bovada, okay.
You got to remember, too, we pulled these middle of the week,
so you got to remember
the line's going to change closer to Sunday.
The line may change, but right now, for Thursday, these are what the lines we have. We have Seattle Seahawks -6 kicking off the season, so I like this to be a very close game. I don't think Seattle's offense can cover that number. I think their offense may take a little bit of a step back this year, and there's been a stat that says that a running back like Marshawn Lynch, if they've carried the ball 250 times 3 straight years, their production kind of goes down a little bit in that 4th and 5th season. So I think that's going to be a very tight game. So in this matchup, the Packers are getting 6 points, so I'm taking the Packers +6.
All right. Staying in the NFC West, I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers laying 5 points against the Dallas Cowboys in Big D. Dallas Cowboys don't have a defense, and that 49ers offense looks like it might be something a little bit better than it was last year, and I know that they've had their off-the-field troubles, but I think that defense will be productive this year. So I'm going to take the 49ers laying 5 points against Dallas in Dallas.
Now, an interesting pick that I made is you got Cleveland going into Pittsburgh in that first game. And so when I looked over the sheet, I kind of went with teams that I didn't think were going to light it up early on in the first part of the season. So I'm going to take, with my second pick, I'm going with Sparty Love. I think Brian Hoyer can do some things. Brian Hoyer this season is trying to keep Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, off the football field, and I think he's going to perform well. And I think Cleveland can do some damage. I think they can do some damage in Pittsburgh. I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns +6.5 at Pittsburgh.
All right, with my second pick, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens giving 1.5 at home to the Cincinnati Bengals. These are two defenses that don't like each other. They're going to sit there and they're going to smash each other up. I think that Baltimore has a little bit more offense now that they've got Steve Smith in the mix. I like what he brings to the table. You've got Torrey Smith as your deep threat, and I think Steve Smith gets all those underneath routes, and I think that they just kind of move down the field and score a few more points than Cincinnati does.
This week, all across the board, has some good matchups. Sunday night, 8:30. Andrew Luck and the Colts roll up into Denver. They're going to play Peyton Manning without Wes Welker. Hopefully, Emmanuel Sanders gets some more touches now that Wes Welker's gone, so it might have been a good pickup for me in our fantasy. I have him in 2 leagues. I think that it's going to be a close game, but high scoring. I don't think Denver is going to pull away as much as they did last year. I think they're going to play well. I think it's going to be a very entertaining must-see Sunday night game, but I think a guy like Andrew Luck is going to go in there hoping to continue to match up well versus the Broncos. I think that he's got a lot to prove. Anytime the Colts play Denver, the talk is going to be Andrew Luck versus Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning was let go from the Colts in favor of Andrew Luck. So I think he's going to have a lot to prove. I think he's going to play well. So with my third pick, I'm going to take Indianapolis Colts plus 7.5 at Denver.
Is that just because that's who your fantasy quarterback is? Is that what the deal is?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah.
I'm hoping that he throws the ball a lot to Hakeem Nicks. I think that they have a strong offense. I think that Andrew Luck is one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league, and he's, I think, going to continue his progression to take that next step from second tier to first tier.
I think the New York Jets, I don't think they cover the 5.5 point spread as the Oakland Raiders go into MetLife Stadium. I think that the Raiders have enough there. They've got a new quarterback who's a little bit fresher, a little bit younger, can possibly whip the ball down the field a little bit better than Schaub could. I don't think that those Raiders, I don't think that they lose by more than 5 points. So I think maybe the Jets will win, but I don't think the Jets cover the spread. I think that the Raiders sit there, and with the 5.5 point buffer, I'm going to take them all day.
Lions, Giants, going to be a close game. I think this game is going to be very entertaining. I think this game has the potential to be the game of the week. I think both teams are looking to get off to a fast start. Both teams are looking to show that, hey, we can move the ball on offense. We need to maintain on defense. And so I took all, when we first did this, I saw the sheet. I took all the teams that were getting points, and I'm going to continue that with my last pick, my bonus pick. I know my Giants getting 6 points will do me proud, and this will be a close game. Now, overall in the game, I like the Lions to win this game on a last-second drive. I think Matthew Stafford will, have some ups and downs as he always does. I think he'll have a touchdown pass to Calvin and Golden Tate each. I think that the game will be close in the fourth quarter, maybe 24-24, and the Lions will have that game-winning drive, and the Lions will win 27-24.
Well, this is going to make things interesting because I'm all lathered up in the Honolulu Blue butter, and I'm eating all the cornbread right now.
The Lions winning more than 6?
I got the Lions giving 6
Easy, 2
at
points for me.
home against the Giants. I think this is more a case of me not believing in the struggling Giants offense than it is me necessarily believing in the Lions. You have to remember, this Giants offense has looked pathetic throughout the offseason. They're having trouble connecting balls with receivers. They've got basically balls bouncing off of helmets, balls bouncing off of hands, balls bouncing off of balls right now. It is a disaster for these Giants. They look horrible. So as long as these Detroit Lions can put up a few points, I think they come away with a win. I think the Lions win this game 35-17.
Oh, okay. Let's both hope we're right in terms of the score, in terms of who wins the game, but I hope you're definitely wrong in terms of the spread. I think it'll be closer. I just think that it's the opening game. They're not going to be clicking on all cylinders. There still might be some kinks to be worked out, and both teams will keep it close, I'm hoping. All right, cuz that was a jam-packed football podcast.
So much football. I love it.
That was a good football podcast. I'm loving it. We've gone strong now, 56 straight episodes. No time off. We didn't take vacation over the summer. We hammered through it, and that's why we're known as one of the best podcasts in the Detroit area, the Detroit Sports Podcast. Every Thursday, we're here to deliver. And check out our friends at the Detroit Sports Nation. They're kind enough to host our podcast, and they have great writers at the Detroit Sports Nation. You can check out their Facebook page, their website, DetroitSportsNation.com. Jeff and the guys do a great job with that website. I love it. They're changing it all the time, but I gotta keep up with them. They're great in terms of designing a great website and a website with great Detroit sports content, and I gotta keep up with them at the Detroit Sports Nation. All right, cuz, another great week, another great podcast. Episode 56 is done and over with. You ready to catch some Tigers versus Cleveland?
Yeah, let's go watch this game.
All right, brother. Take care. Thanks for downloading, everyone. We'll see everyone next Thursday for sure. Detroit Sports Podcast. Out.
Go Lions. I'm all lathered up in the Honolulu Blue butter, and maybe I've got just a totally ass-backwards view on everything.
Thank you. It is now my pleasure to announce that with the 10th pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select
Doc John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Sexy all over.
The bar is high. Hell, it's even higher. It's even higher.